My guest is a former NCAA courtside reporter, and she's also a three-time Palanca Award-winning writer. And one of the things she's most proud of is the GoHardGirls Podcast, where she interviews women athletes about their experiences being women athletes in the Philippines. And today she's going to be herself. So welcome to the show, Ceej Tantengco.
Hi, Andrew. It's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you. We wanted to ask you, pala, where do you get your nickname?
This is a weird story. It's gonna be a weird story, but when I was in high school, so up until grade school, everyone called me Christina, which is my real name. And then I went to high school. I auditioned for the debate team, which I didn't know it was the debate team. It was called Forensics Guild, and I thought, it's CSI.
Why was it called the Forensics Guild? What's the
Because forensics actually means like the art of parang
discovering?
speaking.
Oh, speaking.
Yeah, parang speaking and arguing, whatever, debate. Basta it's a debate term. Forensics is a debate term. I didn't know, but I was already in the team because I had auditioned. And I was like, why are we giving speeches? I guess because we have to defend our DNA results. So I get in the team, and everyone's really strong-willed, very like confident. And a senior thought my name was Christina Jessica, and she started calling me CJ, but my name is not Christina Jessica. And I was too shy to correct them. So I was called CJ for years. And then I came out in my senior year. Like, guys, I have a confession.
That's not my.
I don't have a J in my name. But I'm actually a CG, not a J. But then, by this point, you can't call me CG because in debate, there's a position called closing government.
Yeah,
CG. I can't be CG. So they just made me Siege.
that's a good story. That's what I
So,
like. I thought it was. I would have assumed that it was just like the regular pinaghalo mo lang yung first name, second name mo.
no, it's thank you for high school shyness for giving me this weird name. People think it's unisex. People call me, if they don't know I'm a girl, I get Sir C a lot.
Yeah. So the first time I ever met you, which I told you off the record, was at an NLEX practice. So that was fun. And I've always wanted to talk to you again because Go Hard Girls is one of my favorite things to listen to, like every now and then. Like
Thank
I'm
you
not
so
trying to be
much.
sip or anything, but it really is. Uh, and that's why I did want to like we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the whole starting of a new Philippine women's basketball league. So that's pretty big. What do you think about that?
We've had a great week. Just the news of finally there being a pro league for women in the Philippines. It's something that players have wanted for such a long time. It's something that people have told us wasn't possible. People have always said, no, we need to prove first that women can fill the seats before you give them this opportunity. And I've always felt that people were looking at it the wrong way, that you need to give women the platform first before
Yeah.
they fill the seats, before they bring in the money. You need to enable that, rather than having it be the other way around. I would say that the WNBA actually is very strong in marketing and very consistent with its values and how they portray it. So one of my favorite things about the WNBA is how gender equality is really at the heart of everything that they do. Right now, you see them joining the protests for Black Lives Matter, using the
Yeah.
platform, canceling the games. But even before that, in 2000, I want to say 2016, or a few years ago, there was a women's march. And what the WNBA did was they ran their own campaign supporting the women's march and juxtaposing it with images of their players. So they're drawing a very strong connection between women's rights and the sport on the court.
Yeah.
And what they did was they would donate a portion of ticket sales for every seat sold to go to organizations
Mm-hmm.
that Donald Trump had defunded, such as Planned Parenthood, organizations for young LGBT people, for disadvantaged or abused women. And that sort of power that the WNBA has obviously it is not hitting the same market as the average Joe. It hits a different market. And I think that's a big lesson there. You don't need to hit the exact same market because there's always space within the market for you to expand.
Because you've been like a staunch advocate talaga for, especially for like Philippine women's sports. Did you ever like get in trouble for saying those kinds of things or fighting for those kinds of things?
Yeah, all the time. I think people, again, are the average person online or the average sports fan. You have to consider they didn't really grow up with this framework surrounding the way that they see sports, and so a lot of people just simply take it for granted that this is what men get and this is what women get and this is how it has always been. Therefore, wala, ganun talaga eh, di ba? And that's where they stop. And so for years, I've been pushing for this, for equality, for, whether it's policy, media coverage, the whole spectrum. But for many of the early years, um, you know, being a feminist in a male-dominated industry does not exactly make you quite likable. It's very difficult because I would go to it was so strange. I would get featured by magazines talking about how, oh, here's her gender advocacy, oh, she's making change.
Yeah.
And then I actually go to work and then people would be like, yung ka na naman, feminist ka na naman eh. Or like my reputation would be, I am mareklamo or difficult.
Too angry.
Yeah, I'm angry and I'm so opinionated. And it was very difficult. It was very difficult.
Like if you want to talk about this, Lambo, what's the worst thing a fan has said to you? Like on Twitter or ano?
This was hindi siya on Twitter, pero I was at a game. I was at a basketball game. I was a courtside reporter. And then I was doing the post-game interview. And then a fan started yelling at me and the player, halikan mo siya, halikan mo siya. And I didn't know if he was talking to me or the player, but I was so upset. And then I was holding my mic and I'm like, the moment that I knew wala yung camera sa akin, because you can tell, zoom on the player. So I was like, tinignan ko yung fan. And hindi niya na-gets. He was just looking at me like, what siya galit? And then he resumed yelling, diba? And ako naman, after the interview ends, I tried to talk to some people in charge and I'm like, can you hold that guy? I want to talk to him. I want him to understand na mali yung ginagawa niya.
And you did that? You managed to do that naman?
No. Because when I tried to do that, ang sabi nila sa akin, lahat ng babae dumadaan sa ganyan, masanay ka.
Oh, man.
So, I don't know which is worse. The fan doing that or
not being supported by it, yeah.
Yeah, management saying, it's okay, employee, let them do that to you. I don't
know. It's gross. Do you remember which player that was, though?
Which player? The player had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, obviously. But do you remember which one?
Yeah, that was Ray Nambata of Litran.
Oh, okay.
This happened in 2016, my second year.
92.
Yeah.
Man, aga-aga pa lang sa career mo, ganyan na agad eh.
Oh my. I think the hard part about being a woman is you always have to establish your boundaries. Pag nasa isang male-dominated space ka, yun eh. Parang i-anticipate mo na people are gonna make it difficult for you. So kailangan ikaw yung mauna, mag-set ka ng boundaries mo. Para wala ka rin sa posisyon na people think that they can get away with doing some things to you. So I think that's also why some people misunderstand me. Na, some people think that I'm very cold or I can come off as very parang hindi ako nagiging chummy sa mga tao that quickly. But really that's me trying to protect myself, trying to keep my guard up.
And it's something learned din talaga out of the years of just existing din. You just really learn to put your guard up that way.
Yeah, like I've worked in corporate kasi, and I've been in the position. I was a consultant for a PBA team where I was the only woman in the room, only woman in the dugout. I've presented in boardrooms where I'm not only the youngest person there, I'm also the only woman. I've presented at like quarterly performance reviews where I'm the only manager under 40. And so I can't put myself in those spaces and be like, hi, hello. It's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to negotiate for my sweldo, for the sweldo of my people. I'm not going to be able to pitch my ideas in a way that convinces them. Because something that many women go through is feeling like you have to choose between being seen as competent or being liked. May term yun sa gender studies. Ang tawag the double bind. Na when men are assertive, it's like, leadership qualities. Pero when women are...
They're a bitch, basically.
Yeah, kasi people associate those qualities with being a man. So when women display that, they're seen as, ay, hindi siya babae.
Yeah.
Pero pag
overreacting.
Pero pag naging babae ka naman and you become, yung parang soft and friendly.
Na-infantilize ka naman.
Because people in gender roles tell us that those qualities do not make people strong managers or leaders in the workplace. So women are always put in that position. Now you choose. Do you want to be competent pero seen as cold, or do you want to be seen as warm but perhaps pwede kang gawing doormat? So yun yung, I guess, misconception na people think I'm cold or hard.
The other instance I remember of that happening to you specifically, which I mentioned in the email, like apart from the article, but like the one I mentioned in the email was when you were tweeting na parang, like when Gilas had our favorite president on the in the locker room, and everyone's like, ayun na, mananalo na kasi when like a few days ago he had just said na parang matatalo kayo sa Italy. Yeah. You got a lot of flack for tweeting against that. So I super admired you for saying that. Like very few sports writers were saying that at the time, even though that was like the right opinion, I feel.
Thank you. Wala, you just gotta say it, diba? If alam mo naman, diba, na what you're saying is backed up by reason and thought, huwag kang matakot to express who you are. Be yourself, diba? In I think 2016 also, I wrote this article that was, baby me trying to express my position on these issues. I wrote an article called It's Time We Stopped Writing About Female Athletes' Looks.
Yeah.
And it's about gendered media coverage. And, a lot of people, sports writers included, really turned on me.
I do remember that article. Because that was the product of the whole segment that they had where it was like, oh, who's dating who, or just like the coverage in general of female athletes was like who's dating who, or parang, or top 10 prettiest athletes, which honestly, like even for me, growing up as someone who identified as a man, like that's not parang, like I always found that weird too, and I feel like that's even harder for you, like in the industry.
It was definitely hard because, I came upon that issue because I was set to report for women's volleyball. And, I was an NCAA courtside reporter. I'm actually from the UAAP. So a lot of what I did at the time was research-based. So I would read on the players, on the league. And as I was looking for information about women's NCAA volleyball or women's volleyball in the Philippines, all I could find at the time were bikini photo galleries, top 10 cutest players. There was even an article called "Can You Guess the Volley Bell Just by Looking at Her Body?" It,
Really?
yeah,
That's crazy. Just by
yeah.
looking at her body.
I
What
have
does that even
screen.
mean? Was that like a Who's That Pokemon thing? Na parang naka-shade and...
It was not like a shade, but it was cropped. They were wearing sports bras and short shorts, and it was cropped from here to above their
Oh
knees.
my God.
Then, yeah, and then people would have to guess. And it sparked something in me. I was just so upset because nobody does this for men. There is nobody asks men to be good looking and talented in order to have a successful sports career. You just have to be good. But for women, it's like, oh, you have to be good and pretty. And that's, I wrote that article, and a lot of people, as much as there were female athletes who shared it and like, hey, finally someone's saying this, there were also a lot of men, particularly people within the industry, whose reaction was more like, we have been doing this for 20 years. You
Yeah.
have no to question how we
Yeah.
do what we do.
And like it sells and whatever. So parang to them, it's like there's no reason for them to change that. But
Yeah, if it sells, then that's what the people want. Then we just give the people what they want. And that has always been the struggle. I think it's still the struggle today, but it is changing. It is changing, and I'm excited to be part of that change.
how, like, what are the things na I guess like you're excited about for the near future when it comes to the stuff you guys are doing with Go Hard Girls?
I'm very excited because, well, it does seem like there's going to be a lot more to cover in the future. Female athletes are really leading the way. Jack and Mam is going to play in Taiwan as an
Mm.
import in their university league. And over there, you have Christina Knott, a track and field athlete who broke Lydia De Vega's record just the other day. There are so many exciting things happening with women in sports. If you looked at Slam Philippines coverage of the Mamba Week, all women features. I feel like the industry is finally, after many years, the industry is finally moving in that direction, and I'm excited for where it goes. I'm excited because any social change is about critical mass.
Mm.
And the more people, the more organizations buy into this idea and express this idea, that's when we get change.
Yeah. And obviously, like when you talk about the things you've experienced in the sports industry, and like not just with athletes but just with you in general, clearly, and I yeah, I don't want to speak for women, but like based on everything else people are saying, it's just like it starts from such a young and personal age, didn't it? Just the way na women are treated just on the street. It was crazy to me because there was one time where after like a frat violence issue in UP, like I was walking in UP, and that was like the first time I ever felt like scared to walk outside. And I was like, holy shit, like women experience this like all the time. Like that's fucking crazy. And I guess that's why I wanted to ask you, like, what are the things that just like growing up, like what were the weird things that you had to experience and that you feel like this shouldn't happen to everyone, but why does it happen to me and just like all the other girls around me?
Well, growing up, I did not do a lot of sports,
Mm.
but in my grade school, PE was segregated by gender. So I went to a co-ed school. And if you were a guy, you took basketball. If you were a girl, you take volleyball. And it seems so innocuous. It seems so innocent because these are the sports that are popular. Na okay, sikat ang men's basketball, so we give the men's basketball to the boys. Sikat ang women's volleyball, so we give the volleyball to the girls. But if you think about it, there are going to be girls who want to play basketball and can't.
Yeah.
There are going to be boys who want to play volleyball and can't. And what impact does this have? I speak to teenage athletes today, or the UAAP players today, who say that growing up, it was such a struggle to even stay in their sport because they would be like, okay, bakit ako lang yung babae dito? Bakit wala akong mahanap na camps para sa mga babae? The friends of their parents would tell their parents, uy, yung anak mo, ipag-volleyball mo na lang, magiging tomboy yan.
Yeah. That's the stuff na Jack said on your show.
Yeah, it's what Jack said on my show. It's what Camille Nolasco told me. Camille is one of the best high school ballers right now, male or female. She's already signed by Titan DVT. So, she's a 15-year-old girl and she grew up with that environment, diba? Na boys didn't want to guard her. Wala siyang, ang hirap maghanap ng kalaro. And it's that little small things ba na you don't realize it, you just take it for granted until you actually realize that this is harming people, diba?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's you went to a co-ed grade school, diba? Yeah. But have you had like experiences in like all girls schools? Because you went to Miriam too, diba? For high school?
For high school.
What was the difference between those two things?
I actually enjoyed Miriam so much. Miriam helped me in amazing ways. There are actually studies diba, that prove that there are benefits to all-girl education. There aren't as many recorded benefits for all-boys schools.
Oh, yeah. Because I went to Ateneo for grade school. Like when people say you saw the whole issue recently din naman about the like how LaSalle was saying that they're gonna accept co-ed just to shape the boys.
Yeah, that's not diba? That's not how you do it. There are problems in all boys spaces, but studies do show that having all girls spaces has benefits for girls because when you live in a society where there are all these gender roles, and at a certain age when boys and girls are together, societal conditioning kicks in, and then boys are more likely to assume leadership roles in group work. They're more likely to be more vocal in school, and then girls are more likely to take a step back because they don't want to upset social order, diba? Whereas in girls' schools, it's just girls competing all the time, which is good because it drives female achievement, it drives female ambition. Personally, it felt like a safe space for me going to Miriam because when I was in grade school, sobrang bully ng mga klase ko.
Like how? Like what would they? Paano ka nila binubully?
So kasi English was my first language. And when I got to grade school, parang inaasar nila ako na ma-arte ako kasi hindi ako marunong mag-Tagalog. And I just wanted to learn Tagalog. But the more I tried to talk, the more they'd make fun of me for my bad Tagalog.
Yeah.
And then I was a little chubby child. And then they would get pencils. They would get pencils and sandwich it in between my fat rolls, you know.
Oh, man.
And then as in, ang dami talaga, like, looking back, parang, ang sama ng mga bata, guys.
Yeah, kids are evil sometimes. It's crazy.
Horrible. Like, kids, in my grade school, boys would pick their nose and wipe it on my notebooks. Yeah, they would steal my bag and hide it in places I couldn't reach, you know, and it was so toxic. Alam mo yun? Na going to an all-girls school felt so freeing, and I loved my time in Miriam. I was so emo in high school.
Like how emo?
Like eyeliner, the My Chemical Romance.
My Chemical Romance, red jumpsuit apparatus.
No, more My Chemical Romance talaga, like full-on My Chemical Romance. I wanted to have Corpse Bride, like that was my jam. Okay, like I wanted to have eyeliner all the time.
So you were the Tim Burton kind of girl, na ano? Oh man.
Yeah, Tim Burton, ganun. Tapos, yeah, my whole barkada was like that in high school, and we were just so angsty and sad.
About what? Like, did you ever figure out what you were sad about?
We were just sad that we were awkward.
You were just sad
And
because Jared Way was sad.
yeah, I was like, oh, I'm gonna join the Black Parade. No, I don't know why I was sad, but I was sad. And then, yeah, and then, oh my gosh, you know what? When I was my third year prom,
Hmm.
I think I had like my first feminist moment at third
How?
year prom.
When that happened?
So the prom committee was going room to room saying, okay, here are the tickets. You can buy for one person or for two for your date. And then the prom committee person said, you have to bring two because if you don't bring a date, it's not going to be fun. And ako naman, as his baby tibak, was like, I already had a date in mind, ha? I had a date in mind, and I knew he was gonna say yes. I was so excited to bring him. It's like, crush na push ko siya.
Yeah.
Alam ko medyo, yes, my chance. But then when they said that, I was like, excuse me, the fun of an evening is not predicated on whether or not I have a boy with me. I'm not going to bring a date as a statement. So I went alone to prom.
But did you have fun? Did you end up having fun?
Yeah. I ended up having fun because I was at a table where a lot of my table mates had been set up by their parents and they weren't actually talking to their dates. So I ended up talking to their dates. So
Oh man. Did you ever like experience the soiree culture of like all girls schools?
I went to one. Very strict yung parents ko noon eh. So I only got to go to one.
Because I feel like they're so awkward. Like every time that I hear about soirees, it's like boys who just don't know how to talk to girls.
And girls don't know how to talk to boys either. We're in someone else's house. And we're just like, pretend to look at cell phone. You know, like it's like that. It's just like that. And you just hope, and you're like, sana yung type ko na dito, sana nandito siya. And then he gets there, and you're like,
Di mo naman alam ang gagawin mo.
I'm gonna talk to him because he's gonna find out I like him, so I'm gonna ignore him.
Big brain time. That's funny. And like, you know, I shucks, I forgot what I was gonna say. Growing up in a co-ed school though, and just like being messed with by by people who would stick pencils in your um in your fatty rolls. Like how what are the other differences like when it comes to just like grade school and high school? Like how was your transition year?
You know, I feel like high school was about healing for me because after going through all that bullying in grade school, I went into high school with so much paranoia that I felt that everyone's gonna be out to get me. I don't know what's gonna. I'm so scared. And then it took all of high school to sort of reset my social skills because I had gone in thinking everyone's gonna get me. If you're popular, you're gonna be mean to me. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to deal. Because in my grade school, the popular ones were the bullies, diba? So I went into being popular kasi siguro masama ako. And it took all of high school to learn that that's actually not the case. And by college, I would like to think na medyo nag-normalize na ako. So I loved high school for teaching me those lessons. Thank you.
Did you prefer Miriam or Ateneo?
Ateneo, because I think sa Ateneo, na ako dun eh, nag-normalize na ako. So, mas na-enjoy ko na. There was less angst. Mas kilala ko na rin sarili ko. My classes were the ones that I liked. So, unlike high school, where you're like, you need to take every single subject kahit di mo gusto, di ba? In college, you can go with what you want, di ba? Sa course mo.
That's true. I feel like it's the opposite for me. Like I really hated high school. And college was just like an adjustment period for me to So now I'm like ready to be an adult as I am currently not working and only working on this thing. So
Well, it's hard to be a creative in these times.
yeah, for sure. But I also feel like it's the most necessary time then to be a creative right now. Just also because
Mhm.
everyone's at home. So
Hmm.
it's kind of necessary then for people to have something to watch and stuff. What are you watching right now?
So I'm watching a lot of K dramas right now.
Oh, okay.
I like the ones that are crime thrillers. So I watched Tunnel, Signal, now I'm on Stranger, and these are all like serial killer crime murder things. And
you're still at the forensics ano pa rin. you're still like, there's still like a low key My Chemical Romance part of you there.
I like mysteries. Yeah, I like stuff like that. So I'm watching those. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts.
Hmm.
I'm playing Animal Crossing.
Okay. That's taking a lot of time for sure. You're not a Smash Bros kind of girl.
No way, I don't have reflexes.
Okay.
'Cause I didn't grow up playing video games, so I can't do
Hmm.
fast video games. I can only do things like Stardew Valley, Animal
Okay.
Crossing,
Harvest Moon. The yeah.
ganun. Yeah.
Pokemon.
Pokemon, yeah. Minecraft, kaya ko yun. Pero yung Minecraft, ayoko yung may mumu.
With all the K drama you're watching, have you been able to speak Korean and konti?
Yeah. So I actually did my internship in Korea when I was in college.
Oh.
And yeah, I went there and I worked at a Korean TV station for a short time. And so that was in 2011, and I've just been taking classes ever since. So I love speaking Korean. I like visiting my friends in Korea. Um, I mean, I think a lot of people assume from the things that I'm doing that I'm this like hard ass feminist activista all the time.
Mm.
But I'm really I'm just a dork who likes K dramas also. Those can coexist, okay?
Yeah, even I don't think those are mutually exclusive. It's weird then to me like um you sige, like what are the assumptions that people have had about you other than that you feel like it's dead wrong?
Well, people think that again, like if you have this cause that you're talking about, parang people assume sometimes in the Philippines when they hear that you're a feminist or you're promoting gender equality, na ay galit sa mga lalaki. That's not true. Also, so being a feminist doesn't mean that I'm a woman, I'm better than men. It means that uh, we deserve equal. So it means that women have been in a position of inequality for centuries. And so feminism is about raising women up so that we can have equal to what men are getting. And I'm not a man hater. I have lots of guy friends and, you know,
I guess just like the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about was just how did you find that voice at all to learn sports stories and
well, again, I didn't grow up playing sports. I was always super lampa. And so going into college or, pursuing my interests, sports was not on the table for me. I did debate, I did campus journalism. And when I was working already at GMA, I was in the News and Public Affairs department. And I was hanging out with a lot of sports writers at the time, and I wanted to transition to a career in television. I, at the time, was working with Biyahe ni Drew, the travel show of Drew Arellano, and I loved just the adventure of everything that he got to do. And sabi ko, okay, I want to like see if I can take that path. And there was no opening for it at GMA at the time, but there was an opening at ABS-CBN for a courtside reporter for the UAAP. So I said, okay, I'm gonna audition. But I also knew going into it, having hung out with sports writers a lot, I was aware of the stereotype that courtside reporters um, a lot of people see them as hindi naman talaga marunong sa sports, pero maganda lang.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true,
I
but
also don't think that's true.
the stereotype exists. And so I knew that I didn't want to feed into that stereotype. So I really researched. I I would buy my sports editor friends lunch, and I'd be like, okay, let's have pizza together. I'm gonna report in front of you, and then you critique me as hard as you can, and then I'll take your feedback and I'll do it again. And that's how I would spend my lunch breaks. And so going into the auditions, I was like, I'm so prepared, So I fell in love with the storytelling of it, the human stories. So even if I never played, I love the human stories. I didn't get it for UAAP because I was too old. By that time, I was already a working professional, and they need students for the UAAP. So I ended up in the NCAA, and yeah, once you're in the industry, you realize the universality of these stories. You realize that sports is a microcosm for the real world.
Yeah. Na it can just really
Whatever,
be boiled down to themes lang din eh. Just like
so
winners, losers.
yeah, whatever issues you see out in the real world are carried over into the sports world. So that's what I enjoyed about. I like covering things like the intersection of race and sports, gender and sports. Sports doesn't exist in a bubble. Everything that happens there is the product of something else happening in society, and that's the space which I have found the most fulfillment in, and that's where Go Hard Girls is in terms of that ecosystem. Diba?
We talked earlier about how like people just didn't believe in you when it came to fighting for women's rights and fighting for the visibility of women's sports. But who were the people who did support you? Like how did Go Hard Girls just even become a thing?
Well, so like I said, I started off with that article I wrote in 2016. And it sort of defined or crystallized that this is what I want to do. This is the change that I want to make. And I realized that I'm not going to be able to make change until I get my own platform. So if you're going to wait around for people to give you a platform, that's not going to work because they're only going to give you what they believe in, and you'll be a voice to that. So I understood that it was very important to put myself in the position of independence to pursue something that was really me. And so, there were people who supported me along the way. I would say Adrian D. He was the sports editor at GMA when I was there. He moved eventually to ABS-CBN. He was the editor of NBA Philippines for a while. Adrian gave me really great career advice back then, because in the hardest years where it felt like being outspoken was taken against me, being outspoken was framed as, once you're controversial, once you're opinionated, you have less mass appeal, you're gonna have less followers, it's gonna take more time to grow your career, it's gonna hurt your talent fees, whatever. People want a blank canvas. They don't want opinions, basically. And I would complain to Adrian all the time. Adrian, it's so hard. I'm so tired. When is it gonna pay off? Why is it so difficult? And Adrian told me, you already know that you're on a different path. So don't get stressed out judging yourself by the metrics of other people. Na what worked for them, but you're on a different path. So don't try to don't feel bad when your different path is getting you different results. You're playing a long game, and just accept it. Your path is going to be harder than their path. Just accept it. Accept it. It's going to be hard. Oh, it's going to be hard. So Adrian was great. He was like, it's going to be hard, but you're going to feel good about yourself. So just do it anyway. So Adrian was there for me. I would say my first, how did I end up with GoHardGirls? So Puma Podcast is the Philippines' first podcast network. It was founded by journalists. And they approached me last year saying, why don't you come here and make a podcast about women in sports? And you can, they were 100% down with the gender equality advocacy. It wasn't like, come here, pero ingat lang tayo sa messaging.
Yeah.
No, like, come here, we believe in it. And that support was what launched GoHardGirls. So GoHardGirls is part of the Puma Podcast Network. They threw their whole support behind a crowdfunding campaign for our first season. A crowdfunding campaign that we were able to succeed at. And I've just been blessed to unlock all this support that I didn't believe was there. I always thought it would be an uphill battle and I'd be alone. But over the years, I'm just realizing that maybe I was just not in the right environment to find that support. But if you put yourself out there, you are going to find the right people. So I found Puma Podcast. I found, the people who donated to our crowdfund. They're amazing. On the first day of our crowdfund, I emailed the law firm of Ingles Laura Calderon.
Yeah. We sponsored your episodes for a couple of episodes. Yeah.
I emailed them about the crowdfund and I said, I know you guys support gender equality, you're sports lawyers. Maybe you could consider, right? And then I wasn't expecting much, or I wasn't, even guaranteed that they would donate to the crowdfund. And then within one day, they had already answered, and then it was an amount beyond what I could have expected.
Wow.
Yeah. So
crazy.
So that's it, diba? Na I am grateful for the support of people like that, and most importantly, I'm grateful for the support of women, because it's women who we do this for, diba? It's women who are going to benefit from this. And while I spent years in an industry that told me, now there's no market for women, ano yan eh, ang sports fans, 85% male yan, according to our,
according to your biased ass survey.
According to the analytics website, fine, diba? But what we're proving here is that the market for women's content is out there. It's just that you weren't reaching them before. Of course, your website is going to be 85% male because there's no content that serves the needs of the female audience. So I'm grateful for the support of the female athletes themselves and speaking up for what we do and supporting the cause. And it's a shared mission for all of us. And I'm happy to have found that community.
I'm happy too. I'm happy for you too. And I guess that's why, the very last question I'll ask you is, what does a long-term vision for women's sports look like for you?
The long-term goal for me with women's sports is I want us to get to a point where women can take it for granted that they have equality. I want that by the time I retire, I no longer have to frame articles in the context of this is what she had to fight against. I want us to get there. And along the way, I want girls to feel that they have a voice to speak out, to express their needs, their grievances, their struggles. I want them to not feel afraid, because I remember the time when female athletes were afraid to speak out because they would say, I get so little media coverage as it is. Why would I rock the boat? Why would I risk what little I have, diba? And now, just 5 years down the road, I have girls on the podcast who will straight up call people out for sexist media coverage, diba? Or sexist policies. I want that future where every girl feels that she can speak out. I want a future in which leagues think twice before implementing certain policies. I want a future where women's leagues are defined not just by the fact that there is a women's league, but by what they contribute towards empowering the women financially, culturally, socially. And I still dream of that day now. I want to look back. I want to look back on the days when, and I can already do it now, diba? I can look back on 5 years from now
Yeah.
and be like, oh my God, I felt so alone. And now, I have people with me. This is so great. There's a community. I want to keep growing that. I want it. I want equality to be normal. I want a future in which Go Hard Girls doesn't need to exist. That's what I want.
Thank you again so much. Is there anything else you want to promote?
Please listen to Go Hard Girls Podcast. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Anchor, wherever you listen. If you want to get news on female athletes, we have our social media pages. We post achievements or new records being broken, quotes from female athletes. So if you want to make that part of your routine, follow us on social media. My personal social media is at Ceej the Day, Ceej the Day.
It's with a J and not a G. As your classmates have taught you. And
yeah, I hope you join us and keep supporting women in sports and women in general. So yeah, thanks, Andrew. This was fun.
Thank you, Ceej. Thank you so much for being yourself. Bye-bye.
Bye.